I'm Detective John Kimball. I'm a cop, you idiot. Not really. I'm just a guy who talks about smartphones. But I want to talk about, is Samsung making a mistake pursuing the megapixels instead of just making use of good pixels? And the reason I want to talk about this, pretty much everything is indicating that with the S23 Ultra, we're going to get a 200 megapixel camera. I talked about this previously in a video because I'm not really sold on it. And here's the thing. And if you believe in the DxOMark score, you can. If you don't want to, don't worry about it. If you don't know what DxOMark is, they're basically this group of people, some agency out there, and they rate the best smartphone cameras and cameras in the world on different criteria. Some people think that they're bogus, some people don't, but they take a stab at it. And I certainly am not doing it. I'm not that good when it comes to going, oh yeah, this one's 1 point here, 1 point there, whatever. Who cares? Not my cup of tea. But it does give me something to point to, and well, that's what I like to have for evidence. So when we talk about the phones, if they're going to go with the 200 megapixel route, megapixels don't mean everything. There is so much more that you could do with a camera that doesn't involve trying to shove 200 megapixels in it. It's a marketing gimmick. I am wholeheartedly in that this is a marketing gimmick thing, because when it comes to megapixels, unless there's someone out there who can correct me if I'm wrong, whenever you have a photo, they jam all these pixels in there, whether it's 12 megapixels, 48, 50, 200, 108, whatever. So when you have all those pixels, you get two things. You can either blow pictures up really large. So if you want to make like a big canvas like behind me, you're going to need like a 50 megapixel camera. If you got like a 12 megapixel camera, just for example purposes, you can print out like a 10 by 12 photo and it's going to look lifelike. That's the whole goal that most companies are going after. You want to have the most lifelike, most true to life photos. That does require a certain amount of megapixels, because based off the size of the image, if you don't have enough pixels, you start having less pixels. So then they look grainy. So if you're my age, pushing 40, going back to the 90s, and you're looking at all these grainy, terrible photos that got scanned over, or you're looking at the original digital pictures that were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 megapixels, yeah, once you looked at them off the phone, they weren't so great, because you took them off the little 3.5, 4, 4.5 inch screen and tried to look at them on a monitor, and you're like, that did not look as good as it did on my phone. Well, it didn't have enough megapixels for the resolution you were trying to look at. So resolution, scale, megapixels, all that jazz. The other thing you get is, of course, you get pixel binning, because what they do, it's kind of a thing where, okay, if you take a look at what iPhone did with the 14 Pro, Pro Max, they got a new 48 megapixel camera. What does it do? It bends down to 12. So basically they take 4 times the pixels and shove it into the same space. And then what do you get? You get what a lot of Android phones used to call super res zoom. What used to happen when you used to zoom in on your photos? They would get grainy. Well, this alleviates that problem by cropping and putting all those pixels in there. When you zoom in, you get still a higher resolution digital image. So it looks better when you zoom in. You can zoom in on the big family picture and take a look and see if Timmy's picking his nose or scratching his cheek. So those are some great things higher resolution images give you. But higher resolution images with more pixels don't necessarily mean better quality, more true to life, and a better overall image. And that's why I think that Samsung is going down the wrong road. Why do I feel confident saying that? Well, if you actually go out and take a look at the DxOMark score on a lot of phones, they rank it by the US and they rank it globally. If you take a look at the S22 Ultra, where it currently sits globally, ranked about 14th. 108 megapixel camera. It's already up there. You look at industry leaders like the Huawei Mate 50 Pro, you look at the Pixel 7 Pro, you look at the iPhone 14 Pro, they're all about 48, 50 megapixels. And they make use of those pixels really, really well. They've got really good sensors, they've got all sorts of great lenses and things like that. The Samsung, it just doesn't. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad. I think the S22 Ultra takes great photos. And another thing we talk about when it comes to true to life, so many folks for years didn't like what Samsung used to do. Their approach to business was, we'll make things look super vibrant. They look better than real life. And they do that by, the contrast and the hues and all that good stuff, HDR, beautiful screens. I mean, what good is having a beautiful camera if you don't have a beautiful screen to, coexist with it on the same device? So there's a lot of ways that you can look at something and kind of get a good feel for what the picture looks like. So Samsung was always known for making the greens look so vibrant, the blues, all that stuff. You look at the sky and it just looks better than any other camera. Although it might not be realistic, your eyes perceive it maybe as looking better. So going down this 200 megapixel route, there are other phones that have them already. There's a Motorola phone that's got it. There's a Xiaomi phone or two that's got it. There's an Infinix camera that's got it. There's a couple different ones, and none of them are in the top 20 globally. I mean, there are $700-800 phones that have much higher scores with much smaller cameras. And my guess here is what you'll probably see is that 200 megapixel camera you'll get, they'll probably pixel bin it down to 50, which is what most other folks are shooting at. If you look at what the Pixel does, it bends it down to what, like 12.2 or 13 megapixels, something like that. So they're not really shooting at that full 200. You might be able to use a camera mode, shoot at the full 200, get the raw export, all that stuff, have like a 100 megabyte photo, but most people aren't going to find value in that. And here's the thing. Samsung's been leading in the US for years with this 108 megapixel camera, which they do great things. It helps work very well. You can get those 100 times super zoom, space zoom, whatever they call it, but the 100 times zoom is nice. And it's gotten a lot better. Kind of gimmicky with the S20 Ultra, S21 Ultra refined it, S22 Ultra took it to the next level. I find it useful. I think it's cool. At first, when I was at work, I was sitting in my high-res, like zooming in like at another high-rise downtown and watching people work on roofs and stuff. But it got a lot better, and it takes some amazing moonshots, right? So I think there's other ways that Samsung could double down and differentiate. And they could also try and, well, enhance their current experience by getting rid of the stupid shutter lag, which is something that has plagued Samsung phones for forever. What do I mean by shutter lag? When you're taking a photo and you're tapping on the shutter, there's a delay. It's not an instantaneous picture. It takes like a quarter of a second. You see the screen flash like the shutter, and then you get the photo. And then you end up with like blurry kid photos, blurry pet photos, and things like that. If you keep hitting on it, it'll start to slow and bog down, and it won't keep shooting super fast like a Pixel or an iPhone does. So I would say fix that, and maybe just keep the 108 megapixel camera. But I mean, they need to change things up a little bit. I don't think that they're still going to be the #1 camera. I don't think that's their goal. I think their goal is to try and use marketing numbers because they know that they're the most well-known, notoriable, if that's even a word, whatever, sue me if not. I'm in Texas if you got the jurisdiction. I might even countersuit. But anyway, so talking about the camera, I think that what they're going for is a numbers game here. Because whenever a customer walks into a store and they go, this one's got 50 megapixels, this one's got 48, this one's got 12, and they go, oh, the Samsung, it's got 200 megapixels. That must be better, right? More megapixels means more mega better. Well, not necessarily the case. And in fact, it's not the case. Especially if you look at the criteria, you look at the scoring for all the top smartphones in the world. This isn't just the US, in the world, in the top 20, at least from what I was looking at, based off the ones I'm aware of, I didn't see any. So 200 megapixels definitely doesn't mean you're going to get a better camera experience. If you get a really good 50 megapixel, really good 48 megapixel, do what Pixel's doing what Huawei's doing what Vivo's doing what a lot of other brands are doing. They're doing some great stuff, making some great photos, and it's not with a 200 megapixel camera. So we'll see what happens. I'm also curious to see what happens with the selfie camera. I read a rumor that I don't want to believe, because the S22 Ultra, I think, has the best selfie camera. It's my favorite. And this is a subjective part of the video where you go, top 20 favorites. Anyway, so we're talking about the one on the back. But the front-facing selfie camera, I love the way it looks. I love a lot of the way it looks on the S22 Ultra. I think it's very, very good. It's my favorite. And there's a lot of subjectiveness that goes in that too. It's very hard to look at something, especially without a certain amount of criteria, and intrinsically you go, this one has more value to me. It's more attractive to my eyes. I like the way that it looks. So when you look at that, they're talking about, and I hope this doesn't happen, going to a 12 megapixel camera on the S23 Ultra on the front, and it looks like it might be universal for the S23, 23 Plus, 23 Ultra. The selfie camera on the Ultra the last few years has been a distinguishing factor and a major decision-making factor, especially for me looking at that phone, because I love the way the selfie camera worked on the Ultras. So if they'd done that down, and here's the other thing, going in reverse, a 12 megapixel camera doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. There are some really, really, really good 12 megapixel selfie cameras out there, and if they do it right, it could be the best. But again, best is very subjective, but when you look at the top 20 in the world, and there's no 200 megapixel cameras up there, and Samsung with their existing 108 is sitting at 14th, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, and maybe it makes you think, are they going in the right direction with this, or are they not? We'll see. The S22 Ultra actually has sold really well. It's the best-selling phone out of the Note series phones like the last 5 years. So they've done a good job with the S22 Ultra. I don't expect a whole lot of change fundamentally once we get to the S23 Ultra, but yeah, I'd like to see them kind of go at things a little bit differently and bring back the SD card. Thanks. So that's all I got in this video. What do you think? I try to explain some stuff as I go. Look, I have a very rudimentary understanding about how to use smartphone cameras and stuff. Like, I can take pictures, I can get the ones that I want. I'm not an expert on this stuff. I have a functional, operational capacity of this, and just from my experience, I like to try and explain it in ways that make sense. And it just doesn't make sense to me. So that's all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, please go down in the comment section. I'll get back with you. We can discuss this. Also, still wearing the Terminator shades for the time being. ZZ Top, Blues Brothers, Stevie Ray. Take your pick. I mean, I went to a family thing last night, and you know, I got run through the gamut of all the different jokes. So feel free to leave your best one in the comments. I'd love to see y'all come up with something creative. But until this eye injury thing decides to go away and my life is fully back to normal, I'll be wearing these for the time being. But things are getting better. I can actually, you know, see out of my left eye again, so that's good. Most of my vision's almost restored there. Still not completely out of the woods, but they look like they're trending in the right direction, so I'm very happy about that, very positive, and thank you so much continued still for all the support, love, and well wishes from everybody. Y'all have all been great. So that's all I got. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all the other great things, all the other great holidays are out there because there's so many people celebrating all over the world. I hope it's a wonderful time for you. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.